Algernon Cash, and this is Eat, Drink Triad, your leading source for what's happening with the local food and beverage industry. And we're coming, or we feel like we're coming out of COVID. And one segment of the food and beverage industry that was certainly more damaged, more so than maybe even restaurants, was catering. And wanted to invite a good friend of mine on, Kevin Heath, who is the owner of Kev Mark Catering. For the past 21 years, he's been in the catering business, and he is one of the few that have survived COVID. Not to mention, he's also pivoted. Pivoted has becoming a big word in the last 18 months, and Kevin has done that as well. And we'll talk about some of the new ventures that he finds himself in as well. So, Kevin, how are you today, man?
Doing great, Algernon. Hope you are, sir.
I am. You heard the lead in, man. For over 20 years. You've been in the catering business, and I'm sure in the last 18 or 20 months, you've probably seen more than you ever thought you'd see in 20 plus years. I guess just generally, as we kick into the conversation, Kevin, talk a little bit about the world of catering. What does it look like as we're coming slowly but surely out of COVID?
You know, the world of catering has been ever changing. When I got involved in the restaurant business 35 years ago, we didn't even like doing takeout boxes, takeout meals. And the thought of us doing a catering job, we would have revolted against our boss. And I've grown to love catering because it's something different every day. I'm not locked into the same four walls. I never imagined what happened on March 12th of 2020 could have ever happened. As a small business owner, one of the things that drives you every day is you know every day that your business can go away, and that's what drives you to get up and go and drive and fight and scratch and claw. But to watch 6 months of business bookings all decline and all be canceled in about a 4-hour period of time, it was numbing to actually watch the business go away. Even though you knew in the back of your mind it could go away anytime, to watch it go away was numbing. And then we had to go, okay, what's next? And how do we move forward? Fortunately, I found a client that was going to feed their shipping and receiving people that they couldn't send home once a week. Every week. They've been doing it since March of 2020. And I've been the beneficiary of that most of those weeks. And then just finding other things to do. The Pimento Cheese company that I'm involved in, Uncle Chris's Pimento Cheese, I had just bought my partner out in October of 19, and timing was fortuitous. Because the grocery stores got hammered and everything they had on their shelves got sold. And I think through that process, we've picked up some new customers along the way. So as the catering declined, the Pimento Cheese business grew and has continued to grow, even as catering comes back. And catering is different now. It's a lot of the events we do are pre-boxed and pre-packaged, whereas we used to do buffets. Now we take takeout boxes and put everything in them and set them up and take them to the location and hand them out. So it's totally different.
You know, you mentioned the uncertainty, and I think that if there's any single force out there that can kill small businesses, it's uncertainty, just not knowing how to plan for the future or not understanding what might be around the corner. And I think when COVID hit, it was the uncertainty of it all that probably had the most damaging effect. And even as people started to get a bit of certainty, even if they didn't like the certainty, it allowed for them to plan for it so much better. And I can recall when COVID first hit, you and I even having some really late night conversations. You know, I think all small business owners were trying to console and help one another. We almost had our own support group that we had started. which I do appreciate those phone calls and those conversations, Kevin, that you and I had early on, because it really allowed me also to sort of think through the issue and what was going on. Over 20 years of being in business, I'm sure you have seen some crazy things, maybe not as crazy as COVID. But I want to ask you, I mean, what do you think has made you most successful in those 20 plus years? What's allowed you to get this far with your business?
Several things. One, I've always operated really lean. I've never had five vehicles on the road, and I've never had a crew of 20 people and that sort of thing. That has allowed me to be very nimble. In the economic downturn of 08, 07, 08, 09, it allowed me to almost take a bunker mentality, and I didn't have a lot of outstanding debt. I wasn't leveraged. There were a lot of catering companies in those days that were leveraged and went out of business. And I knew if I could just stay strong and get a catering job here and there, that I could pay the bills and I could pay the overhead, and I could continue. And that when we got to the other side, there'd be business. And that's exactly what I found. So being small, being nimble, being responsive to my clients. I don't operate with menus. I encourage each client to develop a menu that's perfect for their event. Whether that means the client and I sit down and figure out the menu, or they bring me a menu that they've already worked on. But that way they have exactly the menu that they want, because all food is not appropriate for all venues and all events. So I don't like to force people to choose the things that are easiest for me to prepare. I want it to be a great event for them, and I want it to showcase whatever they're trying to showcase as far as their business, or if they're entertaining guests at their home. I want it to be a showcase for them as well as a showcase for me. And that's always been my attitude.
You mentioned the shifting landscape of catering in terms of how you actually execute on events now. And I've certainly been on record saying that I think the future of catering is much different than what it's looked like in the past. I do believe, whether we like it or not, I do think you got more companies that are more addicted to Zoom than ever. And I think the business luncheons and some of the events that you would see around lunch have sort of went away. And I think some of that's went away permanently. Before we pivot and move into another part of the conversation, real quick, Kevin, what's your prediction for the future of catering? I mean, will we see mass consolidation in catering? Will we ever see business luncheons come back the way they were before? Or what are your thoughts?
I would say, I think it's going to be a hybrid. I think I just know, talking to other businesses, I've talked to businesses around town and across the country that are never bringing people back to their office. They've discovered they can do it without that. And then I know other businesses that think it's vitally important for their people to get back into the office, to be able to have those so-called water cooler moments, and the synergy that they gather, that they get from being in the same space. So I think you're going to see some business lunches. We're not going to see as many business lunches as we did in the past. We used to build the business on business lunches, quite frankly. And so I think we're going to have to find other ways to fill that need. And weddings are getting smaller. I did 3 weddings last year for 11, 13, and 17 people. So I've also in the last year, I've done a wedding for 50 people and 104 or something like that. So, but I think weddings are probably going to get smaller. I hope that I thought people were getting more comfortable with being out, and now we've got what appears to be round 2 going on. So I don't know what that does to the psyche of people getting out and going out and being out. We were seeing quite an uptick in sales in June and July, and now we've actually had cancellations come back for the month of September and October. So the uncertainty has raised its head again. Just when we thought it was safe to go out, we have more uncertainty, and the uncertainty is what's really difficult. If we know the future is going to be X, then we can deal with it, and we can pivot again to figure out to fill the need for X. But it's that uncertainty of knowing what the future is that makes it really difficult.
If you're just now joining us, you are listening to Kevin Heath. Kevin Heath is the owner of KevMark Catering, also just a good friend of mine. But Kevin is also doing some new things. He's not just focused on doing catering any longer. He's actually moved into the retail product space, and he has Uncle Chris's premium pimento cheese. And I have tried it. It is great with a glass of wine and some good crackers. I've also encouraged people to try it on a burger as well. But I guess, Kevin, tell us a little bit about Uncle Chris's premium pimento cheese. Who's Uncle Chris? Let's start there.
All right. So Uncle Chris, a guy named Chris Russell and I, about 8 years ago, started a little over 8 years ago, started Uncle Chris's premium pimento cheese. And we started making cheese for one food truck. And in September of 13, we got into our first Lowe's Foods in Clemens when they were doing the remodel, the first Lowe's Foods remodel that they've since done probably 70 remodels across their footprint. So we started in 13. In the fall of 19, I bought Chris out. So we're still operating under the name of Uncle Chris's and still push that brand. But Chris is off doing his own thing now, and I'm trying to grow the brand and continue to push it. And the pimento cheese has been something that really benefited during COVID because of the frenzied buying in the grocery stores, particularly in March, April, and May of 20. And we've seen continued sales throughout. Not only are we in Lowe's Foods, but we're also in a number of smaller markets around the area. The Bowie's Market over on Avalon Drive, the Clemens Country Store, the Advance Country Store, the Louisville Country Market, the market by Dragonfly Farm up in King. We have some restaurants that use our products. So we're just, trying to branch out and touch as many people with pimento cheese as we can. We're trying to let people know that there's more ways to eat pimento cheese than just on a pimento cheese sandwich. Burgers are a great idea. It goes really well in omelets or in scrambled eggs, cheese grits and shrimp and grits. So there are lots of ways. Basically, anywhere you use regular cheese, you can substitute pimento cheese.
Well, I'm going to give a quick plug to Lowe's because I shop at Lowe's, and I have often told people the curbside service, the pickup service at Lowe's will change your life if you have not used it yet. And if you're busy like me, I constantly order online. I do it on my phone. I pull up, they throw the groceries in the trunk. I keep going. So shameless plug right now for Lowe's Foods. They are not a sponsor. I just like Lowe's Foods, and I think people should support them. And now that I know that I can get Uncle Chris's premium pimento cheese at Lowe's, I just wrote that down right on my little card here. So when I do my next round of shopping, Kevin, I'll make sure they throw me one of those in the bag as well. And around here in the South, we love pimento cheese. And if I meet anyone who tells me they don't like pimento cheese, I have to question whether you are really from North Carolina or are you a transplant or where did you come from? Because if you're in North Carolina, born and raised, you absolutely love pimento cheese. like I said, I'll get it with some wine and crackers and do that, but I also like to throw it on a burger. And you just made me remember, Kevin, with what you're saying. Chef Tim Grandinetti uses pimento cheese in his shrimp and grits. He does a firecracker shrimp and grits where he actually uses pimento cheese, and it's first time I had it that way, and it's really good. And then at the Love Festival, the food festival that Chef Grandinetti does every year, that just passed, we had a kid that came down from Maine, and he took Rockefeller oysters and he put pimento cheese and bacon on them so that it was more Southern. And yes, I think I ate maybe at least a half dozen of those, and I have promised myself to recreate those here. And maybe now I can use the Uncle Chris premium pimento cheese to do so. You know, Kevin, there's so many pimento cheese products out there. I mean, you go in the Lowe's or whatever your favorite grocery store is, so much to choose from. Why choose yours? What makes Uncle Chris premium pimento cheese different?
You know what sets us apart? You're right, Algernon. There are a plethora of pimento cheeses, and back 8 years ago when we started, there were not near as many on the market. But what sets us apart is, number one, we use real cheddar cheese, and that sounds maybe strange to some folks, but many of the commercial pimento cheeses on the market use processed American cheese food, which when I'm doing my sampling at different locations, I remind people that processed American cheese food is neither cheese nor food. I've heard that it's like one molecule away from plastic, but it certainly is not cheese. They like to pass it off as cheese, but it is not cheese. So we use real cheddar cheese. And then while our product has mayonnaise in it, our product is not mayonnaise-y, as a lot of pimento cheeses are. There's a particular pimento cheese on the market that has its first ingredient is mayonnaise. Its second ingredient is processed American cheese food. So we use less than half the amount of mayonnaise to the amount of cheese that we're using. So yes, it has mayonnaise, but it's not ooey gooey full of mayonnaise. The flavor of the cheese really comes through. The other thing is we make it in small batches and we deliver it fresh to MDI, who gets it out to Lowe's Foods, and then I deliver it fresh every couple weeks to our local markets that I mentioned a moment ago. So we take a lot of pride in the product. We use premium ingredients in the product, and we think it's better. You know, if it weren't better, I would fix it and make it better, because we just don't want to sell an inferior product. That's what we're.
You mentioned some of the stores where it can be purchased. Real quick, any plans to sell online, or is that already available? Or,
you know, online is difficult because of the mayonnaise in the product. You can't freeze the pimento cheese, and if we could freeze it and throw it in a cooler with a frozen cooler block thing, we could deliver in 2 or 3 days across the country. Because we have to ship it refrigerated and it can't be frozen to start its trip, we typically have to do overnight, and particularly this time of year, we have to do early morning delivery, and it just gets outrageously expensive. We'll put, $20 worth of pimento cheese in a cooler, and it costs $40 to deliver it. So it just becomes cost prohibitive. I have shipped it. I've had some people that have called and said, "Hey, I don't care what it costs. I want it. I want it now." And we do it, but it's not a big focus of ours. Our focus is finding more retail partners and finding additional restaurants to use our product in their ingredients on their menus.
No, I totally get it. Well, for my audience, you've been listening to Kevin Heath, who's with Kev Mart Catering. So if you have any catering needs, make sure you think about him and reach out to Kevmark Catering. But in addition to Kevmark Catering, Kevin Heath also has Uncle Chris's premium pimento cheese, and it is available at Lowe's, Bowie's Market, several other places around town. I also know Chef Ebony Warfield down at Six and Vine used that pimento cheese for Burger Week. So don't just think about pimento cheese in the traditional way. There's so many other ways you can apply it, and it is applicable. In addition, I want to make sure I also mention this because Kevin also has Twin City Provisions. And around Christmas time of last year, he was so kind and gracious enough to bring me some of that great Moravian sugar cake. It's not just good for the holidays, it's good all year long. And if you want to get some of that great Moravian sugar cake, I know my grandmother was a huge fan of it. A lot of people out there in my audience, I know you love that Moravian sugar cake. Check out Twin City Provisions, and you can get you some of that great sugar cake. Real quick, Kevin, if they want to reach out to you, how can they get in contact with you?
My phone number is 336-918-5507. And my email is Kevmark Catering. That's KEVMARKCATERING @bellsouth.net. Those are the two easiest ways. I also have a Facebook page under Uncle Chris's Pimento Cheese, as well as Kevmark Catering, so they can reach out to me through Facebook Messenger. And those are primarily the ways to get in touch with me.
That sounds good. And to my audience, I appreciate you listening to Eat, Drink, Triad. Make sure you do stay tuned to WTOB. Every single week, I give you a new restaurant that you can go out and try. But for you to hear that, you got to be listening to WTOB. And don't forget, every Sunday morning, you've got Eat, Drink, Triad, as well as Locked In with Algernon Cash. So make sure you check that out as well. The podcast is always available on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, wherever you like to download your favorite podcast. Eat, Drink, Triad is available there. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And until next time, y'all stay locked in.